a JavaScript comic reader, Doom modding, and the completion of the Plague Machine. All this and more tonight on the Hydromecha Monthly. Welcome back to the show. Here's the stuff I was working on this past August. If you feel like you're missing context on something, check out last month's video. We'll start off right here on the set. You've probably already noticed things look a little more, well, animated than last time. On top of some automated lip sync, I'll link a tutorial down in the description, I've also got some limited animation going on. I'm aiming for a sorta early Adult Swim look, think Space Ghost or Aqua Teen. It might be fun to do an actual show in this style later, but I probably shouldn't pile more projects onto my Tower of Babel of a backlog, which might be getting too tall already considering this next project is in another language. And that language would be JavaScript. This here is the comic reader on hydromecha.website, link down below. The website isn't optimized for mobile browsers at the moment, so check it out on the computer if you can. The comic reader uses some programming mumbo-jumbo to change what image is loaded on the web page, while also preloading the following page and previous page, if applicable, to make the reading experience as seamless as possible. You can navigate by clicking on the left or right sides of the page, pressing the left or right arrow keys, clicking on the buttons below the page, or by using the drop-down menus. Jumping ahead to an unloaded page can take a little, but just reading through the pages in order should be pretty smooth. The chapter information, page info, descriptions and notes, the comic starting page, where the newest button takes you, and more are loaded in dynamically based on the comic settings. This past month I added the ability to change the comic you're reading on a single HTML file. Previously I had each comic on its own separate web page, which is a waste of data since they all use the same exact formatting. You can swap comics using the drop-down menu or by clicking on the respective comic's cover below. These buttons are currently hard-coded in HTML, but I'd like to get them to populate procedurally through JavaScript, similarly to how the drop-down menus work. It'd be nice to get a similar system set up for comics chapters as well. After I add those features and make things a little more user-friendly, since adding comics is kinda clunky right now, I'll throw it up on a GitHub repo. If you really want, you could always trawl through the JavaScript by inspect elementing, but don't expect things to be super tidy. Antarctica Must Fall is the name of a Doom mod I'm working on. For a while now it's been on ice, but I recently got back to mapping it this past August. I was messing around with a super early gray box of Map 01 and started getting some ideas which evolved into a slightly more fleshed out level. I have a playlist of uncommentated videos showing some things off, link in the description. If you want a more in-depth video going over the mod, let me know in the comments. So far I've made 2 monsters for Antarctica, the Snow Demon and the Surprise Elemental. I want to make a third called the Cyber Penguin, which I got a model, animate, etc, etc. I could also do a video talking about that process if there's interest. There are 2 recordings of Map 01 in the aforementioned playlist. The newer video includes sound effects for secrets, monsters falling from air vents, flamethrowers, and surprise elemental stashes, among other changes to the level itself. There's a bit more info on the mod on the Hydro site, link in the description. Venturing out of the digital world and into the physical, I bring you this, the progenitor of pestilence, the Plague Machine. It's done. I'm really happy with how this scratch build turned out. What started as an empty gallon jug and a few vague ideas eventually evolved into this mostly mechanical monstrosity. It was a lot of fun to put this thing together, and I'm planning on doing a making of video sometime in September, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you want to see some higher res pics of this build, check it out on Newgrounds, link down below. When I started this scratch build, I knew I wanted to have a gallon jug with some spindly legs and maybe some sort of insectoid head. Everything else was just free-handed, or stream of consciousness if you get paid by the syllable. As nicely as this turned out, I might want to plan things out a little more for future builds. I think the water on the base could have turned out better if it was made with that in mind from the start. The next scratch build I do will probably be another robot monster thing on an oceanic base, which, if you've read my username, shouldn't be much of a surprise. We'll wrap things up with Bugalo and a few projects that didn't get a ton of progress this past month. As is custom in these lands, Bugalo, or Wonderful and Fancy High School Bake Club, got a new page this month. Check it out on the Hydro site, link in the description. In a shocking twist of events, Bugalo may be starting a coherent plotline. The horror. In writing-related news, I made a little bit of progress on the Hazardous Materials comic script and the Table Knight module, but not enough to warrant talking about them in detail. I also messed with a couple of the Jank Fighter animations I showed off last time, but I'll share those when I get more of them done. Well, that's all for August. The Plague Machine and my own nebulous time management took up a lot of my free time. I gotta try getting a better system in place to get more things done, especially on some of my more writing-intense projects. I find I usually struggle to get started on that kind of stuff, but once I can get into the swing of things, it flows pretty quickly. I'll be back next month for another project recap with hopefully at least one more video between then and now for the Plague Machine. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and all that such stuff. Have a good one.